subscribe.
Hello, I'm Christy Lynn Horpedal, an assistant editor at Adam Smith Works, and this is the Smith Questionnaire. My guest today is Glory Liu, a scholar of Adam Smith and a lecturer in social studies at Harvard. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, would you rather be loved or lovely?
I would rather be lovely.
Would you rather Wealth of Nations or Theory of Moral Sentiments?
Wealth of Nations. I know that is one of the more controversial answers, at least based on some of the Smith questionnaires that I've seen from my colleagues. But yeah, I'm going with the Wealth of Nations.
All right. What do you think is the best antidote to the torpor induced by the division of labor?
Being with loved ones, dancing, and being in nature.
Smith says that one of the times we experience sympathy is when we share an appreciation for the same piece of literature or work of art. What do you think people should read or listen to or watch to feel sympathy with you? I feel like you might have told us a little bit in your last answer of what you might say. What are some things that would help us sympathize with you?
Go watch a ballet or go watch a concert dance performance. I'm a contemporary ballet dancer, so go watch Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater. Go watch the works of Akram Khan. A book that I have loved recently that combines an analysis of dance and the ballet world and also about diversity and equity and inclusion and power and our understanding of our bodies is a great work by the writer Chloe Angel called Turning Point, highly recommended. And short of that, you can watch so many dance clips and full-length performances online. Watch Baryshnikov dancing. It's hard to not be moved. It's hard not to feel what they're feeling when they're performing. So yeah,
Those are
that's one part of my answer.
Those
I could go on and on.
Thank you. And when I post this, I'll drop some links in there so people can check some of those things out. It's summertime. A lot of people are going on vacations. If Adam Smith was alive today and going to take a vacation in the world as it exists right now, where do you think Adam Smith would want to go? And what do you think he would do on a vacation?
Oh, wow. This is a new question, I think. So, there's this Smith legend that he kind of went walking while in a reverie, like in his nightgown, and then found himself like many miles out of town, like by the shore or something. So anywhere where he could take really, really long walks and just be like uninterrupted by cars or buses or trains. So like Hawaii, I don't know. I just, imagine him in this like amazing warm summer air with the waves lapping against the beach. So you could just get lost in the beauty of the outdoors while thinking about the division of labor and the extent of the market or something.
That's wonderful. I'm sure he would have enjoyed that if he had that opportunity.
I was about to say, like the Lake District or the Peak District or somewhere really like kind of like rugged and majestic, but like that seems kind of dangerous if you just want to get lost in thought. So yeah, beach.
Someplace safe where you're not going to
someplace safe, exactly.
Yes.
You're not going to
Nobody would want that for him. Okay. So bringing it back to economics, a lot has changed in economics since Smith's time. What development in economics do you think that Smith would most appreciate that's come after him?
Was a really good one. I think, so I'm going to say two things. One is, well, neither is really super thought out, but I would say, I think he'd be interested in behavioral economics. And especially especially the behavioral economics that study other regarding motivations. I think you've interviewed Vernon Smith before, and I think that he'd probably be interested in some of the work of behavioralists who study kind of, yeah, like the altruistic motives, or just kind of like irrationality. Everything that's basically not what people thought Smith was about. He'd be interested in that stuff. Yeah. I also think he'd be really interested in development economics. I think that so much of the stuff that's in the lectures on jurisprudence A and B, as well as in book 3 of The Wealth of Nations, that some of the bits of book 5 of The Wealth of Nations, where Smith is really looking at the politics of political economic development, would be really interesting to him too.
Yeah. So I have a question I'm going to jump ahead to because of your response, which is, what is something about Adam Smith that you think people get wrong? So you were sort of suggesting that the parts that people don't know Smith for. What do you think is something that a lot of people misunderstand about him that you wish that they got right?
A lot of things. I've like devoted my entire career to figuring this out. If I could pick one thing, I would say most people don't appreciate how much of a political thinker he was. And I don't mean that in the sense of like how partisan he was or what his substantive political positions are, right? Like, oh, Smith is on the left or Smith is on the right. But they actually really cared about the nature of politics. My wonderful colleague at King's College London, Paul Sagar, has a new book that's out called Adam Smith Reconsidered, and I think Paul really nails it on this front. And I think that most people don't appreciate how Smith thought about the nature of politics, how concerned he was with the nature of like violence and domination as drivers of political change, and also how he thought the nature of politics in modern commercial societies was particularly susceptible to forms of domination and capture, and that like all of book 5 of The Wealth of Nations is him trying to like work out the politics. And I think that it's very tempting to read book 5 as this like hodgepodge of like really nitty gritty in the weeds tax history and like weird stuff about standing armies, and then like, oh, the education, that's nice, that's like soft and cuddly Smith, we like that Smith. But when you like step back and put it all together, Smith is really talking about like the politics of state building and statecraft for modern societies that I think that most people kind of overlook that aspect of Smith.
Wonderful, thank you. And there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of misconceptions.
There's so much work to do, yeah.
Next one is a fun question. I think it's fun. So Smith was very into astronomy as a young man. Do you think that Adam Smith believed in the possibility of extraterrestrial life or aliens on other planets?
Oh my gosh. I'm gonna answer the question by not answering the question, which is to say that I think Smith would be more interested in our interest in extraterrestrial life, because I think he would think that that says something about our kind of like psychological need to know whether there are other life forms out there, and what that says about like humanity and whether we're special or not, and what that says about the kind of science we build around exploring certain questions. So like maybe he's agnostic to whether there actually are aliens, but he's probably really interested in the question of whether or not there are aliens.
Last question, and then I'm going to give you a chance to talk about your book. If you could take one insight or idea or quote from Adam Smith and turn it into a short comic that you could show people who have maybe never heard of Adam Smith, but you want them to get one thing about him or experience one sort of powerful idea he has. Do you have an image or an idea or a quote from Smith that you think would make a really great 2 to 3 page comic?
Also, such a good question. I love the beginning of book 4 of The Wealth of Nations, where he talks about how it is that the merchants are able to dupe legislators into passing laws that work in the merchants' interest, but at the cost of the public interest. And this goes back to an earlier question that you asked about, like, what do people get it wrong about Smith? And I think so much of the public image of Smith is that he's like anti-government. But in this case, what's so clear, if you read the beginning of book 4 of The Wealth of Nations, and he talks about, like, how is it that this specious theory of the balance of trade ended up becoming policy? It's because of how the merchants are able to kind of like dazzle and dupe legislatures. And the legislators are just kind of like going along with it, right? So it's that alignment of people who are structurally and economically advantaged with people in power that ends up being the target of what Smith is talking about. So it's not just anti-government, it's like anti-state capture. And I think that the illustration that he gives of like, how did this specious idea end up becoming like the law of the land is so vivid and so riveting. I think that would be a great comic.
You could have lots of great visuals with the markets and the merchants and the
and kind of like conniving merchants.
Smith on the side, kind of what's happening.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a lovely suggestion. As I said, you do have a book coming out this fall about Adam Smith called Adam Smith's America, How a Scottish Philosopher Became an Icon of American Capitalism. It's going to be published later this year from Princeton University Press, and I would love for you to just tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so the book is about how and why Adam Smith became known as like the patron saint of capitalism in America, when of course we good Smith scholars know that he's a moral philosopher, a political theorist, really a man of the Enlightenment. And the richness of his wide-ranging corpus really gets lost when you reduce him to the invisible hand and self-interest. I wanted to know how and why that happened, and how and why that image of Smith as invisible hand man became so politically powerful in America. So if you've ever been curious about why people fight over Smith, why it is that people think that if you like Adam Smith, you must be a diehard capitalist, and why other people think, no, that's actually wrong. Actually, there are a lot of resources from Smith that we can use to understand, like what I was talking about earlier, state capture, or the mental mutilation and the torpor of your mind from overwork and the advanced division of labor. There's so much in Smith that we want to speak to us today. And it turns out that people throughout American history have wanted Smith to speak to their times. And so this is a book about why Americans have just been so enchanted with Smith's ideas over and over again.
Well, thank you. I'm looking forward to reading it, and I hope we get to review it on Adam Smith Works as well.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us today. And that is the end of the Smith Questionnaire.
Thank you so much.
Soundstripe.